Ladies and gentlemen, we are inching closer to the end of our summit on nations as brands. But before we do that, it is important to have a little focus on our homeland. We have heard from speakers across the globe, but now is the time to bring it back to home, to India. Our next session, India, Ancient Culture, Modern Outlook, will look at a steady mix of how modern India and traditional Bharat can coexist. How learning from the old and adapting to the new is the way to be. We have two segments in this session. So while the jury chair will invite our speakers on stage, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce them to you. Ladies and gentlemen, the first session talks about science, technology, industry, and mathematics in the ancient India and is led by Dr.D.K.Hari and Dr.D.K.HemaHari, a husband-wife duo and co-founders of BharathGyan, a forerunner in Indian civilization, knowledge studies, conceptualized 25 years ago with a mission to raise awareness about the knowledge, practices, and global connects of the Indian civilization over millennia from an Indic perspective. BharathGyan highlights the contributions made by Indian civilization to the world across millennia in the realm of matter and mind, and how they have been game changers for shaping the world to what it is today. And they're doing all of this through the use of multimedia. And our next segment is about taking ancient sciences of the world through yoga, Ayurveda, Vedic architecture, etc., conducted by Ramesh Vangal, who is also the chairman for Katra Group, one of our sponsor partners. So may I request you, sir, to kindly join us on stage. And before that, I would like to request and invite our chairperson for this session, Mr. Janak Sarda, IAA Vice President, Digital Innovation and Young Professional Growth, and Managing Director for Deshtut Media Group, to kindly join us on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome sir on stage. Over to you.
Good afternoon. After cricket, it's time to be back home. With fresh memories of '83 from the previous session, let's go ahead. We have taken a world tour of sorts in the last 2 days. Israel, UK being the flavors of today. It's time now to look back home into India. They say that to look ahead, you need to look behind and understand where you come from. We have all heard the cliches about our glorious past, but not many people know authoritatively about the kind of technologies the ancient Indians were masters of. Even fewer understand what happened to this vast reservoir of knowledge and what made us slip into an abyss from which we are still climbing out of. Equally interesting and really exciting is what's happening these days with some of the priceless ancient knowledge and technology we were once famous for. No more is Ayurveda and yoga to be dismissed as an old world hangover. As we speak, these are being looked at with a different prism, a prism of modernity and current usefulness. Something of real value to the world at large, and of course something that we could bring back home and really reap the benefits of. Let's get into the session itself. May I invite Shri Dr. D.K.Hari and Srimati D.K.HemaHari to present before us, please.
Namaste to all. Good evening. Before we start, we'd like to thank our friend, Mr. Srinivas Swami, for inviting us to be part of this wonderful IAA session. It's been a pleasure to speak to a galaxy of speakers over the last 1.5 days and the remaining part. Now, to get on to the subject of the session, the remote key will be with my wife, as usual. She holds the chabi. I'm just the mouthpiece. I think Go back one slide. Go back one slide. Yeah. So as I said, it's about ancient culture and modern outlook. And the idea is to speak about brand Bharat. And what is this brand when you say? From brand Bharat to brand India is what we're speaking about from our efforts through BharathGyan. When you look at branding, the one thing that I remember very clearly is this particular ad of Jensen Nicholson, which says, whenever you see color, think of us. I'm sure all of you are aware of this ad, especially in being the ad agency. That one thing that hit us was, probably 3 decades ago, they owned the range of colors, not just the 3 primary colors, the shades, the hues. They just wanted to own that space. That's what they did when they said this. It was amazing in my opinion because it stuck. We have seen all of us in zillion ads. But when Mr. Swami asked to speak, the first thing that came to mind was this. Whenever you see color, think of us. How is it related to India? Brand Bharat, brand India is what we'll see over the next 20 minutes.
So if you really look at it, we have been compiling content about the Indian civilization. And what we have seen in this 25 years is we have made tremendous contribution to the world. Like he said, in the game, in the realm of matter and in the realm of mind, both the hard and the soft. But many of us don't know, and it's been a spectrum of aspects that we have really been masters of, and we have actually been game changers. Today, if the world is what you see today, for the good and the bad, I would like to say, many of it you will find that the trigger has come from the Indian civilization. Many of us don't know that. So that is what we would like to see. So we have the spectrum, we have played in the spectrum, but do we know it? Do we claim it? That is very important, and that's a key.
So we look at the 2 aspects of it. When he said mind and matter, physical and the subtle, stula and sukshma. So we look at the 2 perspectives. Here, we have been asked to speak in the session about science, technology, industry, and mathematics, which will put it more in the hard. Our speaker who follows, Mr. Ramesh, will be looking at more the soft perspectives. So we look at focus on this. When you see Africa, East Africa and South Africa, they branded themselves very clearly a few decades ago with the big 5 of the game. Similarly, we hardly know that our civilization, Bharat, had also branded itself for a big 5.
We have some 5 major hard things. See, normally when we talk about India and you ask what is India known for, as ancient India has been known for, people will say spices. But that is such a lightweight thing. There are so many heavier, hard things for which this civilization has been known, and we can really group them into 5 major things. 1, iron and steel. 2, zinc and alloys. You will not believe it, but this is the civilization that has fueled the Bronze Age of the world. And we have all the data and the proof for this. And then cotton and textiles.
See, when you say cotton, when she says cotton, do you know one thing? If you, all of you read history, right? All of you know the subject history. The word history comes from a book written by Herodotus, which is called Historia. And in that book, Historia, there's a statement written by Herodotus that says, it is strange that Indians grow sheep wool on plants. That means cotton was not known as recently as 2,500 years back to the great Greek civilization. So it went from here. Like that, there are 10 proofs which are given in our short films, which we try to show a few. But one more thing, when you look at actually I was discussing with her last night, all of us are aware in Turin, the shroud of Turin is there. But if you look at the shroud of Turin, what do you know what it's called?
It's called Sindon.
Sindon. The cloth is Sindon in the traditional language, that which comes from Sindh. That cotton cloth. So cotton is very much a brand Bharat. Similarly, if you look at iron and steel, going back 1 point, Alexander of Macedonia came here. He conquered lands, he destroyed Peripolis, Persia, Alexander, everything. But what did he take back from India? Not gold, not silver, not pearl, none of that. He took back 100 talents of oot steel from India. Oot is an Anglican term. The original term is uruk in Tamil or uk in Kannada and Telugu. So that means to smelt. So talents is equal to our tola. That's what he wanted. What did he want? Three things in India, Alexander. That's the branding. Steel, wood steel. He wanted to see peacocks and he wanted to see the Ganga. That's all he wanted.
So dyes, indigo, look at it, the name, the color itself holds the brand name for this land. Indigo, blue dye. And we'll see some amazing facts in a little while. And then we have sugar and spice. It's not just indigo. Even Turkish red, the French red coats, the red for that went from India as madder, which was a root dye again. So colors, we have actually shipped a lot of dyes from this land.
When you say royal blue, it's a very British term, royal blue. It's indigo, that's the blue they're talking about. So the term itself, it was only in the year 1905 that when a European could make the blue in Europe for the first time, he was given a Nobel Prize.
Von Bayer.
Alfred von Bayer. Because till then, and in his citation it says, for a dye so difficult to make, it was made it's from the Gangetic River. So that was the influence India had. Next.
And sugar and spice. But the story is not all that's nice. Okay? The sugar today, the demography of the world today, it fundamentally has been changed because of the sugar. The sugar, the passion for sugar and the trade of sugar, that is what Merchant of Venice. Venice was built on all these products and also sugar from India.
We hear about Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. All of us, I've also studied school, all of you have. But have you ever wondered, what did the merchants of Venice trade in? What did they get their wealth from? Shylock is there and others of Portia, all of them there. But what is the products, what do the ships bring from the high seas? Indian sugar. But for Indian sugar, there's no Venice. So, and since David is here, rum is from Indian sugar again. So, I'm sure you didn't get a gin, you just got your water. So look at that. So you look at this, these are big five that India has got. And the much famed Silk Route of the world for a millennia and more. But a couple of millennia before that, we had a tin route going all the way from Hanoi in east, passing right through India, making the alloy. See, tin was a product, raw material that was got from Malaysia and Southeast Asia. It came through India. Along with copper, alloys were made, and alloys went all the way up to Haifa in Israel. And from there it was sent into all the Mediterranean countries. So that is how it was. So,
and why do you need tin? Because copper and tin gives you bronze. And so fundamentally the Bronze Age, and it's very important in alloying to know how to get these metals to fuse together. And that was a technique. So literally if you see, India was at the heart of the tin route, both geographically as well as through technology. Since we are in the session where the focus is on technology, this is one of the technologies that we had mastered. And we were exporting a lot of alloys and then teaching this technique, which was then later picked on. And zinc is a very, very challenging metal to handle, to actually produce, because it vaporizes very quickly. So the world, they couldn't really make good zinc. And the Indians, ancient Indians, they had come up with a very jugaad, as we call it today. They had inverted the retorts and they were catching the fumes at the base and cooling it. So zinc, they were therefore able to get much purer variety of zinc, and the alloys were therefore better.
So zinc, look at this, she used the word jugaad, because the boiling point, the vaporizing point was a short window at a high degree of temperature. Nobody in the world could do it. What they did was, instead of keeping the furnace on the bottom, they put the furnace on the top. They twirled the problem upside down for a solution. So the furnace on the top, the receiving cooling chamber was the bottom, and with water. So that's how they receive. And till 1552, nobody in the world knew how to make zinc except Indians. From here it went to China, and from there it went to Bristol to a person named William Campion who could make zinc. So that was like that. So this is the route. And here we have a person named Wangal. Actually, zinc, his name is Wangal. There, go ahead. Our next speaker is Wangal. So brand.
So yesterday we had a lovely session dealing with a lot of luxury, right? About diamonds and perfumes and culinary art and everything. Look at all these three things that we dealt with in that session. And the lady who spoke on diamonds, she said, Babette, yes, she said that till about 1600s, that is when Louis XIV introduced diamonds to the French court. He was the fashion czar for Europe, right? This diamonds, I would like to just play a short 2-minute film.
Today, the largest diamond mines are found in South Africa, where they were discovered in 1700 CE. Before this discovery, India was the only supplier of diamonds in the world. Golconda mines in Andhra Pradesh were known for their diamonds that were coveted all over the world for their brilliance. Many of history's famous diamonds like Hope, Regent, and the world-famous Kohinoor have come from Golconda. In the year 1650 CE, the French traveller and jeweller Jean-Baptiste Tavernier came to India about 6 times and visited the mines of Golconda to procure diamonds. He sold these precious diamonds to the royals and aristocrats of Europe. In 1669, he made a bracelet studded with diamonds worn in the upper part of the arm for King Louis XIV, the King of France. The king spent an equivalent of $75 million for these diamonds procured from India. Another great example of the Golconda diamonds is the Regent diamond, housed in the Louvre Museum in Paris. Weighing over 140 carats, this diamond is one of the most beautiful diamonds in the world. Surprisingly, when this diamond was taken from India in 1600s, it weighed 410 carats and was about 3 times its present size. An English sea captain stole it and sold it to an Iranian trader. The Iranian trader sold it to Sir Thomas Pitt in 1702. From him, the Regent diamond reached Paris and was sold to Queen Marie Antoinette of France. But what is it that makes Golconda diamonds the best? Most diamonds have traces of nitrogen in them, which give them a yellowish tinge, and they are called Type 1. The Golconda diamonds were called Type 2. Even in this category, they were classified as Type 2A, as they did not have any nitrogen. Large in size, clear and transparent, they allowed the ultraviolet rays and visible light to pass through them. Devoid of nitrogen, considered an impurity in diamonds, Golconda diamonds were the purest diamonds of the world and continue to shine bright even today. The home of knowledge, mystery, and dazzling gems for thousands of years. This is amazing India.
So even today in the diamond industry, if you say Golconda, the best diamonds are called Golconda. And look at the brand. I mean, this is how branding, yesterday we heard one of the speakers talk about how brand is not just for a product, it's for an idea, it's for a quality, it's for an aspect that you do so well. And these Golconda diamonds, the notion that something so good and so rich, that it came to mean mine, rich mine. Hitting a rich mine means, hey, I hit a Golconda. So wealth, huge amounts of wealth meant Golconda. So the word Golconda became a brand. I'm sure many of us, especially youngsters here, don't even know where Golconda is. They may not even have heard the name. Golconda today, sadly, is just shown as a tourist spot for its fort. Nobody speaks about Golconda and its diamonds. And Hirapanna is just a name sometimes in movies and some malls in Bombay. I know there is a Powai mall in Powai which is just called Hirapanna. Anyway, so, and the Greeks used to call it the river Krishna, on which the diamond trade used to happen, was called, the river got the name Adamas, though we call it Krishna River.
In the Greek language?
In the Greek language, they call it Adamas.
Why? Think for a moment, why did they call a river called Krishna in Greek language as Adamas River? Just because we're already running short time, just a minute.
It's a beautiful connect you will see in language. See, Adamas, for them, diamant, diamond. Again, it has its root in the word Adamas. And look at the word Adamas. Adamas denotes, in Indian languages, we say Ad in Hindi means to stay firm.
Ad ke rakhna.
Adam in South Indian languages means to be adamant. In English, you have adamant. That means that which is strong and firm. So look at it, diamond is the hardest substance in the world. Look at the beautiful connect. Something that we've missed for so long. We had a beautiful session on cricket with David and
Men in blue.
So,
and why blue for India? Why is it men in blue for India? Have you ever thought of it? Why can't it be men in pink or men in yellow for Australia or some other color for West Indies? Why blue?
Why is the color of Indian cricket uniforms and the chakra of the Indian flag blue? Have you ever wondered why is blue color also referred to as the indigo color? Why is it the brand color of the Indian cricket team? Or why is it in the very center of the flag of India? The answer lies in the indigo dye. India ruled the trade of blue dye across the globe, so much so that the color blue was called indigo, meaning that which came from India. An amazing range of shades of blue could be obtained from the blue indigo dye. The dye was extracted from the leaves of the neelam plant. The total process from start to finish took 10 days, which involved crushing the soluble neelam leaf. Then came fermenting and boiling, where the light green color of the fermenting extract turned blackish blue. Beating was another method to add oxygen through lengthy and vigorous beating of the fermenting liquid. Then, filtering out the settled indigotine was to be scrapped and dried and shaped into cakes for easy transporting. Blue dye extraction in India can be traced back to 2000 BCE and before. It was a widely practiced industry all along the Coromandel coast of India, the Gujarat coast, Bihar, and the Gangetic plains, and many other parts of India. The travel of indigo dye to other parts of the world from India is evidenced by ikat fabric in indigo blue found in the Pharaoh's tomb in Fustat near Cairo, Egypt, traded by the Arab traders who called it the ajrak. Dyed fabric wrapped around a vase in Harappa dating back to 5,000 years ago. Large clay dye vats discovered at the ancient trading port of Lothal, references in the Bible to Indian dyes. The continuing tradition of ajrak prints seen in Barmer in Rajasthan, Kutch in Gujarat, Sindh in Pakistan and nearby regions. It also went eastwards to Japan and China from the Coromandel coast and Bengal through Chinese and Okinawa traders. Indigo came to be known as izome in Japan. The color blue became synonymous with India, and to remind us of that rich legacy, continues to have a presence in our flag and on our team jersey. The home of knowledge, wisdom and fine
So we
craftsmanship.
see the blue in our flag, the blue our sportsmen wear, is a brand of India. It's a brand Bharat. Every time, next time you see blue, you should know it's brand Bharat.
We'll just play one more movie, a small film again, 1.5 minutes or 2. This is to break another myth that perfumes are only from France. And whatever India has done is no longer relevant. We'll break that myth.
India's obsession with incense. Agar or oud, sandalwood, jasmine, musk, saffron have all been time immemorial fragrances that have at times tantalized, at times smoothened, and at times elevated spirits of the Indians and people all over the world across times. Agar or oud fragrance, which comes from the heartwood of the agar trees, has been regarded priceless by the world community. Agar is an evergreen tree which mainly grows in the tropical climate of India and neighboring lands of the tropics up to Indonesia. Oud or agar is a fragrance that is obtained when the heartwood of the agar tree is attacked by a fungal infection and gives out a resin which gets embedded in the heartwood. The infected portion of the tree trunk becomes darker in color, and it is these portions which give out the most exotic smell in the world when burnt. An essential oil, attar, agar or oud, is one of the most expensive but the most essential ingredient in fine perfumes the world over, prized for its unique sensual aroma. Agar wood is also used in Ayurveda medicines to treat many conditions and has also been used world over as an aphrodisiac. Oud used to be used mainly by the Arabs and extremely rich in the West. In recent times, it has become the base for high-end brands of perfumes in the West. Agarbatti, dhoop and sambrani were other forms of these incense sticks. The tribals had harvested agar substantially from these precious trees for millennia to leave behind a legacy for us. Typically, it is the 50-year-old mature trees that give out the best resin in a slow process and hence the best aroma. Today, in the name of industry, young immature trees are brutally nailed to create artificial wounds or injected with bottles of chemicals to artificially trigger the defense mechanism of the tree in order to create the resin fast. it is a matter of intrigue how the word odor for smell in English seems phonetically and semantically close to the word ode for this fragrant wood. Yet another matter of intrigue is how the word ode for twig, rod or stick is again phonetically and semantically close to the word wood. India's obsession with this aroma has now spread and conquered other parts of the world.
So look at this. This is what is our agarbatti that we use day, morning and evening in our homes. In South, do you know now why we call it udubatti? In Tamil Nadu and all, it's called udubatti. And you wonder why agarbatti and udubatti, because they both mean the same thing. And it's very sad that the youngsters, see, this is what we wanted to say this towards the end as well. But I think when we start branding this as ancient, the youngsters have all walked out, you know, they are not interested in ancient, but they don't realize today's Versace is using oud from India. So the brand oud is still relevant. Why do we call it ancient? Today diamonds, still India is playing such a big role in diamond trade. Antwerp, she said, is full of Indians there. The Gujaratis, the people from Surat are still sitting there. And we were speaking to Mr. Aharoni from Israel. He's saying Indians are still doing diamond trade in Tel Aviv because that was the route, ancient route. They were ancient diamond jewelers, and it still continues. So the moment we say ancient, it's all gone. I don't want, it's no longer relevant.
It's contemporary and it's in use today and all of us are using it. So, and it's got a brand value and the brand value is back to India. And if from brand Bharat, if we claim it back to brand India, it's a brand. Next.
The woods saw...
No, can you go next? Well,
Yeah.
these films are available, there are about 8-10 films you can rest
And
and
the
watch on the YouTube
ratification
channel.
for all this trade comes in the data that you have about Indian ships, the data which Vasco da Gama himself has logged in his diary logs, saying that he came with the largest ship, Sao Gabriel, and when he came to South Africa and they were wondering, nobody had crossed from the seas, Arabian Sea from Africa, tip of Africa. That is why you get the word Cape of Good Hope, because from there on, anybody who could navigate the sea,
There's good hope.
They had
if
good
you
hope.
cross that cape, and that means you look to India, it's good hope. So the focus was India.
And so he says he sees ships that are 10 times larger, and our Indian texts, Nav Shastra, they talk about all these ships and the names of the ships, Begini, Dharini, they all convey the nature of that ship. And no wonder when Angus Maddison in his OECD report, he says that we had 25% world trade and 33% of world GDP was coming from India. I mean, all these data just show that, point to that.
So because when you have large ships, you need to have products to take in large ships. We had steel, zinc, cotton. So you needed not just spices, sugar. So ships were the method of moving the goods. Yeah. So yesterday we had a session on horology. Very nice session. But where did the word horology come from? It's a Greek term, horo. But look at that. That comes from an Indian term, Indic term, meaning aha means day, ratri is night, all of us know. When you join the two words together, you get the term ahoratra. So the centerpiece of the word is hora. Even in all Indian languages, hora means time. Our horoscope, which is horror for somebody, but we still have horoscope in India. So look at the term itself is an Indic term. So so today horology is a Greek subject. We don't own it. But when you get the term and own the term and the idea, because our time is not that time on the watch, our time is a cosmic time. So we need to own that space. So for what is it we need? 3 steps for nation as a brand, our topic for the day. What is it we need to? First, we need to know. That's what we're trying to bring out in BharathGyan. What's the next step? We need to own it. First, you need to know it. Step 2, you need to own it. Third, advertisers, you need to flaunt it.
We need people like you to flaunt all these brands and then show the world that, and show the youngsters today that these are the brands that were there and they are still relevant, and that is what is going to bump up the brand value for this nation.
GDP of India, brand value of India, the idea of India, concept of new India, that's new India. Owning all these things is ours traditionally. Next. So, that's whole, but if you see, 2022 you're organizing this nations as a brand. But look at this, this civilization had this idea and concept and used it millennia ago to show the whole land as a brand. In this, we have the term Bharat. What does the term Bharat for this land mean? Ba means knowledge, light. Bhaskara, Bhanumati, Bha means knowledge. Ratha, Rati, one who is a connoisseur of, one who relishes. So, Bharata is a land where people relish knowledge. That's how we called ourselves. Of course,
We had branded ourselves like that. We called ourselves as relishers of knowledge. And interestingly, the Chinese supported that as well.
See, the Chinese, for them, they knew 5 civilizations. They call each civilization by one name. What do they call India? As a land of knowledge. So we called ourselves as knowledge, a neighboring civilization called us as a land of knowledge. So the branding worked across civilizations then. So we get our name from multiple perspectives, from literature, history, metallurgy, because when you do metallurgy, what do? You glow. So Ba means to glow. So that's a glowing perspective. The people are knowledgeable people. So Bharata, land of, so we had a branding very clearly when we said Bharat. And of course, we have to the Indus River, but in the national anthem, we call it Sindhu. That's the name. That's why when we say the shout of today, it's called Sindon, comes from there. So when the name Sindh goes to Persia and Arabia, for them in their language, and Sir and Her was interchangeable. So Sindh became Hind for them. And when the Hind traveled across from Constantinople, across the Bosphorus Strait, it took the H's dropped, it becomes I. So it becomes Ind for them. And when it goes to Germany and France, it becomes Inde, Indi. And when it crosses from Calais to Dover across the English Channel, an A is added in England. So it becomes India. So from Sindh, it becomes Hind, Ind, Inde, Indi, India, and comes back to us as India. Look how it's traveled, the idea of India has traveled across the world.
But the word Hind is still a brand for India, and these are some amazing facts. Not only does Hind mean, even today when I go to Azerbaijan or any of these Central Asian countries, they look at my bindi and they'll call me Hind, come take your passport. And it is not only just for us, it's for products that have come. Today morning, we had one of the speakers, I keep saying Stephen Knapp, Mr. Knapp, he was talking about using geometrical designs of the Abu Dhabi to project Abu Dhabi as a place. And these geometrical designs, what was geometry called in Arabia? Hindsa. Hindsa was the word numbers, geometry, maths.
Accounting was Hisab. Whereas numbers, mathematics, geometry, everything was Hindsa, meaning that which came from Hind. Maths, look at the spectrum we held. That's why it's in the first slide. We hold the whole spectrum of mathematics was called Hindsa, that which came from India.
And swords were called Muhannad. That again which comes from Hind.
That's all. Also, because you could not wage wars without swords.
And the word and the slogan for cutting somebody is like the Marathas had Har Har Mahadev as their war cry. The war cry in Persia was Jawab-e-Hind. I'm giving you an answer with an Indian sword. I'm slashing your neck. So many things. And the Damascus. There's a very beautiful story about Damascus and how the port is called Damascus because the swords from India would go to Damascus, and Damas means watery, and that is what you see in the brand D Damas, the watery. So that's a beautiful
jewelry.
connect.
They branded it. We have not branded it. We should brand our steel as Damas. That's the original term. That is wavy, watery.
And if you go to Arab, there's many young women and young girls, they are called Al-Hind. And if you ask them what's the meaning of the word Al-Hind, Hind they will say means precious. So I'm daughter for the house, I'm precious to my father, so he has named me Hind. And this Hind, if you see, it's derived from the word Hind. So India was so precious for Arabia.
Precious to them.
Hind was so precious that it is reflected in the sentiment that anything precious is Hind. And daughters who are so precious to the family, they are called Al-Hind. Isn't that such a beautiful? So for Arabia, Hind was so precious, and for India or Hind, Arabia was another, like you would say, the principal partner for trade. Without Arabia, all these products would not have reached the Western world, much parts of the Western world.
Mediterranean. So branding creates value. So that's what we had done with Hind. So it's just a name. As I said, Alexander, he took only 100 talents of steel from India. And of course, he didn't see the Ganga or the peacock. But what was happening to the world? It was all India-centric. It was the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow was India. When you look for India, you got East Indies, you got West Indies, you got Red Indians, you got Indonesians. Everything was India-centric world. That was the branding that India had created a millennia ago.
So these are all the various brands of India that we can talk endlessly about, and there are endless more. So going back to the ad that we showed you in the beginning, whenever you see iron and steel, think of us.
Think of India. It's brand India, brand Bharat. When you see iron and steel, India, because it's iron and steel is India, because until Tauban gave it in 1752 to the Swedish, there was no thing. So it's a bronze age of the world. Think of India. When you think of cotton, when you wear cotton, think of India. That's a branding. Cotton, think of India. When you see blue, think Bharat, think India. When you see sugar, how many of you can live without sugar in your tea? Think India, because sharkara, granules, white granules came from us.
How does the word sugar come? It comes from the root word sharkara, which means granular, gravel-like. And we show beautifully in our books how it morphs and becomes sugar eventually in English.
The term itself comes from the word sharkara. So when you see spice, think of India, because when you say, you call it spice in here, what do they call it? What do they call it? You call a shop as a Persian shop as Garana, right? Kirana, Garana, all that you call it, Kirana. What do you call a spice shop in Turkey? In the Grand Bazaar of Constantinople, it's called Bharat, B-A-H-A-R-A-T, Bharat. That which comes from India. A spice shop today in the Grand Bazaar of Constantinople is called Bharat. That which comes from India. They have branded spice as Bharat. We have not. So when you think of spice, consume spice, think of India as brand Bharat, brand India. When you think of ships, because navigation, we give nav, navigation, which is the ship that's mentioned in the Bible. Noah. Noah etymologically similar to nav. Navgat, navy. Across civilization, you go to mine, we don't have time to show that, because that itself is something we are good. So when you think of diamonds, obviously think of India, Golconda. When you
Very
think
interestingly, we did not just use ships for trade. We were trading in ships.
Making ships.
Not just from 1600s onwards. We built the ships when Alexander had to return. We continue to build dhows for the Arabs. Even today in Kerala coast, they build the dhows for the Arabs.
Any American citizens here? Okay, fine. Okay, that's because we're short of time. Because the point.
So when you smell perfume again, remember our oud.
When you think of perfume, think of India. Because Gandha, Sugandha, it's an Indian concept, very ancient. When you think of curry, obviously you have to think of nothing else you can think of. So, and when you think of zero, India gave, and the other end of the spectrum, infinity comes from the Ananta, infinity. Shunya, zero, Zephyr, Zevero to zero. It's all there in the films. We got all the films ready, but the paucity of time will not be show it now, but it's there available for all of you. So when you think of infinity, think of zero, the whole spectrum. And when we gave this idea some 15 years back, okay, so before this, let's go. So it's not going to be a decade of India, it's going to be a century of India is what McKinsey say. But for that, if Indians don't claim back our brand and say this is brand Bharat, brand India, somebody else is going to claim it as their brand. So if you want to be really a Vishwaguru is one side of the word, but if you want to be a leader, you have to know about it and
own
it and flaunt it. And you're all the right people to flaunt it and say it's brand Bharat, brand India. And so these are all the contributions. Now, look at this. We're going through different eras. We're going through travel era, big ships, planes, all those things happened. Then you went through trade era, navigation, industries, different eras you've been going through. Information era, knowledge era. That's what you're in now, information era, knowledge era. What is going to come next? AI. After AI, what? Mind era.
See, after
By 2040 to 50.
After AI, when the devices start thinking for you, what are you left with?
Only
an
differentiating.
An empty mind. And then that's going to become the devil's workshop. And you're going to wonder how are you going to handle your mind.
Which civilization has worked on the mind consistently for 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years and documented mind, analyzed mind and documented it for us in perspectives? It is India. That's what is written in a book, Brand Bharat, Future from India, where mind era, so when mind era comes up, India should be able to put up its hand and say, we have worked on it for 5,000 years. Here is, we are ready to offer this knowledge on mind. So we should be proactive and offer. So whenever you see mind, you can't see mind. So you can only think of mind. Think of mind, think of us, think of India. This is going to the future, 20 years from now, and say, we are ready. When the world is ready, we are, because zero is given, infinity is given, blue is given, red is given, pink is given, sugar, diamond, all that is given. What can you give? Yoga is also now given. What can you give next? That's all past. Done. We claim that, but what else can we do? Mind is the most powerful. That's a differentiator. We have that too ready. If so, what is what we have to say? For that, we have to know, own, and flaunt. Next point. So when we went to Mr. Srinivasan Swami 15 years back and said, this is what we want to bring out. And we asked him, how do we should? He was going to design this for us. So look at this. This looks like a meditating man, but actually, upon zero, below infinity, so on many things in between is what India has given. That's why we took this as a logo, and we thanked him then, and we thank him now for offering. Because there are many things India is offering. Offered, will offer, and mind is the most powerful of all that we'll be offering. We have offered all this. We'll continue to offer happily, but we need to own it also, and that's how it comes as a mind in our. And these are, go back one slide, please. Go back one slide, yeah. And these are the books in which we have kept it. It's there for all of you. Those who want to, it's available, because given the paucity of time, we're over short time.
All details are available in these books.
And the books and films, and I think you know these two guys there in the screen.
Yeah, and you can reach us at this
and we'll
email
be happy
ID.
to take questions from you on email, answer. All the data is available. We'd like to thank all of you for a patient hearing, and to Mr. Srinivasan Swami for inviting us to be part of this audience, and to Mr. Ramesh for remembering that we made another presentation 7 years back in Goa on a similar but a different subject. All the same. And all of you. And actually she had a job.
Yes, but I think I said that. So I think finally it comes down to you have organized all this about nations as a brand as IAA, but as part of IAA India, perhaps, you know, if you all could take up
the task.
I won't say it's
job
a challenge.
on hand.
I mean, we have done the one part of the work in compiling the content, and if you all can start, you know, flaunting it so that people get to know about it, that would be really great.
So she's giving a challenge to IAA, to India chapter. Own the brands of India, make known to people, and flaunt it for India and for the world. Thank you so much to all of you for giving us opportunity to speak. Namaste. Namaste all.
Namaste.